Holiday parties will be coming up, and there are times when all of us have seen someone to make a fool of themselves, perhaps have a bit too much of the eggnog, and this can cost a lot, including your job. Let's learn a little bit more about this from Ted Anderson, who's an employment attorney. He's a 1320 WILS and Fox News radio employment expert. Ted, how are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
It never fails. Whenever I go to a holiday party at whether it's my company or my wife's, there's always a few people who have a little bit too much, and that always surprises me because a lot's on the line when you're talking about your job and your career.
Well, that's true. And most companies, even if they do have a holiday party and serve alcohol, people need to be aware that most of the employment rules and workplace rules are still in place, and they still need to honor them whether they have too much to drink or not. So that means that they have to be dressed appropriately. Their language has to be appropriate and sensitive to various workplace discrimination situations, and they also need to be responsible enough to make sure that they can get home okay, because not only may they be responsible for any accidents that occur, but the employer may be responsible as well.
Are holiday parties still popular, or are we seeing less of those?
Well, unfortunately, lawyers like me usually advise the employers that holiday parties are fraught with pitfalls for the employer. So, for instance, you've got the situation that if they choose to serve alcohol, a lawyer like me would say that you probably shouldn't serve alcohol. But if they are going to serve alcohol, states like Michigan have social host liability. So, for instance, if somebody gets overserved and then they go out and there's an accident, the employer could be responsible under the circumstances. And so what we tell our employers is that if you're going to have a holiday party, have it off premises, make sure that all the employees know that there's no mandatory requirement and that there's no business purpose for it under the circumstances so that they can come. And then we also tell them that if you're going to have it off premises, have it in an appropriate place, not a nightclub, and don't serve hard alcohol. And on top of that, make sure that you have some plan in place to either have cab money or cab fare or a shuttle available to get people home without driving, or also maybe some kind of reward plan for other employees that might drive their inebriated coworkers home safely.
Do states vary? Well, and I guess just saying that out loud, I would imagine they do when it comes to who's responsible after a holiday party has ended. If if a worker falls and injures themselves, if they get in an accident, if they're accused of sexual harassment, is the employer responsible?
Well, in almost all the states, there are discrimination laws that are in place. So if there is sex harassment or something like that that occurs in the workplace, almost all states have some liability for the employer. States vary when it comes to what we call the social host liability, and that is liability for serving alcohol in a social situation. And that goes not just to the employer, but also to any of you that might have a holiday party. While, for instance, Kentucky does not have a social host law in place, Michigan does. And so you could potentially be responsible for people that come into your home and drink too much and then go out into the streets and have an accident or cause some injury under the circumstance. So while there may be some variance state by state, ultimately, in Michigan anyway, you could be responsible if you overserve somebody and you don't make sure that they get home safely.
Ted, from your legal point of view, what's the most disparaging story you've heard about a holiday party go wrong?
Well, the one thing that you have to make sure is the holiday season is a fun season, but having mistletoe around the premises only leads to a situation that doesn't work out. And I've had a number of situations where there was mistletoe and employees get underneath the mistletoe, and then there is an unfortunate situation that can be translated into sex harassment. So If you're going to have a holiday party, no mistletoe.
We've been talking with Ted Anderson, who's an employment attorney. He is a 1320 WILS and Fox News Radio employment expert. Ted, thanks so much, and happy holidays to you, sir.
Happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving.